The following content has been provided by New St. Andrews College in Moscow, Idaho. For more information, visit us online at www.nsa.edu.
Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison, that's right.
Welcome to What Have You? I'm Rachel
Here
Jankovic,
we are. I'm Bekah Merkel.
and we sit in the darkness tonight,
I think this is later than we've ever ventured.
podcasting in a cloak of darkness. I suggested to Becca that we were like, one of the problems with these late night podcasts is that we bring no energy to the table. And I was like, I was thinking maybe this time she said, well, what should we talk about? I'm like, why don't we just talk about how sick of it all we are? Let's just cover it. We're actually over it.
Set the scene here. A
The
little bit.
scene. Let's
The
not
scene
neglect.
is-
You don't even know this yet, but don't neglect to mention that I'm having a summer allergy attack right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The allergies will feature.
I mean, it's
largely.
happening since we started trying to have a podcast.
Oh, it's that fresh, is it?
This has not been haunting me all day, only now.
So we're sitting outside my house tonight.
Yeah.
Lots of times it's.
Oh, it was probably
it's just
actually
around. Sometimes
probably
we're from
was the
Rachel's house.
canopy. It probably was the
Maybe.
canopy that gave me the allergies.
But the thing is that my house, as you well know, is under construction. I've been refinishing the floors until I can't bear the sound of polyurethane.
Becca has this beautiful big wraparound front porch that right now looks like the upstairs of a antique store, like a runaway antique store.
does.
The kind that you'd be excited to find. You'd be like, look at all the stuff up
It's
here,
all
the
the
stuff that I
things.
want.
All the things are on my porch. So that big piece of furniture that I mentioned
Well, I wanna
a
know,
while ago,
have you
I
been-
posted a picture
Yeah.
of it. It's out on my porch.
But
Our
have you?
piano
I
is
was
on
going
my
to
porch.
ask if you've been playing the piano out there, because it would be a nice touch.
And nobody's tried to thieve it off the porch yet, but if they tried to make away with the piano in the night,
I don't think they could. We
But the
doubt
thing
they
is,
could.
I have refinished that floor now too much. I had to do so many coats of polyurethane, and I learned more than I ever wanted to know about polyurethane, and I finally got it in the end, but it involved a lot of sore knees. I was crawling around on the floor
I told Luke.
too much.
I told Luke. So it's been really a hot sauce surprise at my house too. Mostly named Moses, actually. What happened is my 1.8-year-old just has made a run for the border. He's checking if he might not be the dictator after all. He's like, it's possible that if I just stick with this long enough, and it's actually very funny. So long as you're winning, it's funny.
Yeah,
and
you
if you're
gotta
not
win.
winning, it's unfunny to
Well,
the
when
end
our
of the
kids
world.
were little, and I know everybody's are different, but our particular brand of child, the Merkel brand, Ben always said, from the time they're 1 to the time they're 2, they ask the question, who's really in charge? And if you answer the question definitively, then actually, when they're 2,
Clears up.
it's totally
Things
great.
really clear
But
up.
when they're 4, they ask it again.
This is
just
why-
to make sure.
One of the topics of conversation has been daily at our house. Moses, who's the boss? It's like, Mama's the boss. Who is not the boss? And he has Momo. And I'm like, Momo is not the boss. And you're
You
not.
gotta keep those
And
categories
you're not
clear.
going to be the boss. I am
Like-
the boss. And I'm really alpha dogging on him right now because you have to. It's an
Yeah,
upstart.
Very important.
But what makes this funny to me is I texted my husband, because humor is always the best therapy for things. I text my husband, saying, just checking what's the workman's comp plan on this job that I have. And he texted me back, have you thrown your mental back out? And
You're
I
like,
felt
"Why,
like, yes, I have.
And I sprained my mental
I
ankle.
threw my mental back out because what's happening the other day, so I thought this was really a glorious time, but I took all my kids to Walmart school supply shopping in the middle of the day, in the middle of the road construction, and apparently in the middle of a Moses uprising. So what can make it better than when you're holding these little fat cheeks in your hands in the cart at Walmart, being like, look in my eyes, you will blow that out. Blow it out. And he's blowing it out. But while he and I are trying to negotiate these things, someone's like shaking my arm like, look at this pencil box. Look. And I'm like,
But here's the
everyone
thing.
freeze and be silent because I'm speaking to Moses about his bad attitude.
Here's the thing, though. This is
Go
why,
find those
Rachel,
stupid 26 dry erase markers. 26
I
was
know
on our
so
list.
many.
26.
But this is why Amazon Prime. This is the reason for Amazon Prime.
It was a funny moment, but it was not bad. We went to Staples afterwards. That's how bad it was. We went and did other things afterwards. It was not that bad. But what was funny about it is the Prime I don't care for, because then you have, I love Prime, but not for school supplies. Limited things I buy school supplies on Prime. I don't like that many boxes coming into my house.
It is funny when it's a big box and you open it and it
there's,
says
like, pencils.
pillows of air, and then
Yes,
there's a
you're
little
like,
pencil at the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah.
a pencil. And I bought at Staples. And I was laughing. You know what? In some ways, having a lot of children, you realize, really warps you as a person. Because I bought us an electric pencil sharpener, and I was totally like, we don't deserve to have this. We're never going to keep it alive. Like, I felt like this was a radical indulgence that we got an electric pencil sharpener. And this is because we've killed so many pencil sharpeners that I think I dismissed them. And we've been living without pencil sharpeners for like a year and a half. Where I'm like, we can't maintain a pencil sharpener in this house. We're not allowed to have them.
That's
we can't have them. So I
here's my
splurged
thing.
it up and bought one.
On a different subject.
No,
that I feel
this is fascinating.
It is fascinating. I could talk about all the amounts of cream I have in my fridge because I have to make 400 desserts on Friday. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna pass by that.
Why would you not?
Because I can't really bear the thought of thinking about that cream.
Where are you
anymore.
going to put them when they're made?
Put what?
The 400 desserts.
Oh, they're gonna be assembled on site. I'm not gonna.
So you're storing the goods
I'm
in
storing
vats.
the intermediate portions, and then we're gonna assemble and plate
Got it.
on site. This is for the NSA convocation reception on Friday. No, what was I gonna say? It wasn't about that. Oh, here's the thing. The last couple times, I feel like we kind of camped out on the subject of, I don't know, like, let's not tolerate a lot of sin in the camp. You know, when you have Christians...
We camped out on rebuke-a-thons.
Yeah, but see, here's the other side. This is the ditch on the other side. There are a lot of people in the world who make their living and have their fun by running
Rebuking.
around rebuking, drawing lines.
I haven't seen them
blowing
lately.
Whistles. Yes, you have. Think of the people who are out there being the voice for the undertrodden. It's like,
Well, those I tend to think of.
no, they're the people who do exposés on blogs. They're the people who try to take down pastors. They're the people who run like accusatory blogs. And this is on the other side. Like they present themselves as if all they have is a zeal for righteousness, when what they actually have is a spirit of accusation. And that is a very different
And also, it's like
thing.
a weird obsessive kind of pride, thinking that your light shining on this would bring resolution, or like, if I just devote myself to flipping through the annals of the internet, I will then be able to bring great clarity and justice, which is like, no, you will
But
not.
see, I guess here's the thing.
Haven't I said that on here? My feeling when people say I have to know everything to judge.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do you think you're a judge? You're corrupt.
But
Like, you're taking bribes
no,
already.
but here's the thing. Like, we've been talking about, okay, let's say you have a friend and she's in sin and you can't whack up the nerve to say something about it. That's one problem. But on the other hand, you have all of these people who are like the self-anointed
The one that is.
warriors of justice who
Yeah.
go out and about casting aspersions at everyone. And that's the thing that I feel like, well, we're not saying to do that.
Yeah, just
I
don't.
just feel like let's
Dodge,
be clear.
dodge that ditch. I actually think if you talk about the two ditches of this, and almost in any issue, there's errors on both sides of it, right? This one is summed up in that psalm that obviously I can't remember the reference. I want to say 26, but I'm sure that that's wrong. So whatever, it's in the Psalms. I could look it up for you, but it's late. It's fret not thyself because of evildoers. And then the second half of that is neither be thou envious.
Yes.
And I think that the thing is that what we have when you talk about the rebuke thing is there's the uptight skivvies in a knot, frantic, bustling around the town to make sure everyone knows that you saw her in a skirt that you thought was a few inches too short.
I'm not talking about those people.
No, but I'm talking about them now. So let's say that would be one. Fret not the fretting thyself because of evildoers. That would be one thing. And the Bible says, fret not thyself because of evildoers. And fretting, what I mean by fretting is kind of a fascination with it, like picking at it, like fretting a wound or fretting something. It's like picking the scab that's not ready to come off.
This is the women who are obsessed with other women's immodesties.
Yes, or and it probably could come. It could come to this what you were talking about, the justice warriors of other causes, is fretting thyself because of evildoers. But the second half of that, neither be thou envious. That is really often the root of not confronting. The root of many things, but
it's the root of the confronter. Like the lady who goes around confronting her heads off.
I think that those two things, don't be in a worry about it, and also don't be envious.
See, I always took that verse as being aimed at the same person in the middle of the same sin, which is like if you picture the kind of uptight lady who is confronting the immodesty. Just picture that. Fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious. I always took that as
you in your current situation fix both of these.
No, but it's envy that drives, because envy is interesting because it doesn't just want what the other person has. It wants them to see the other person go down and not have it. And so I always thought that it was I don't know. I always took that as the same.
I think it obviously could apply to the same person. I think what I was trying to bring up is that when you say, neither be thou envious, it's that one of the things that, what we talked about in a previous episode would be that, like, if you can't get on board with wanting to tell someone they need to knock off this sin problem,
right?
It's like what Jesus says about, a man who's looked at a woman to lust after her has committed adultery in his heart. Like, there are many, many Christians who are committing the same sin in their heart as the friend is actually in the flesh committing a sin. And so that envy of someone who's just actually doing what you wish you would do, that is a thing. What I meant is that sometimes it's actually that keeps people from confronting, because their heart is in the sin also. Not that your heart is going there.
But oftentimes,
like, maybe I wouldn't have said it that way, but I feel that way, or I wouldn't have,
Often, though, I do think that what we were talking about before is the real basic virtues of, or vices, I guess, that list that Paul mentions. It's like drunkenness, fornication.
Yeah.
Don't have anything to do with somebody who calls themselves a Christian and behaves that way. So you've got idolatry, false accusation is one of the things on that list. And so there's that. And oftentimes the people that won't confront those sins are out confronting sins.
Yeah.
Or perceived sins.
Trying
but the ones that they're confronting,
scare quotes in there.
Yeah. The ones they're confronting are the people that might actually draw the line about those sins. So it's a funny, so let's say you have drunkenness or fornication or whatever going on, and you have this funny bubble of people who circle around and protect it, and protect the person from judgmental Christians. And so
Don't worry, I'm not one of them.
And it's like, I will fight them for you.
Tell me about your homosexual desires, and I will shelter you from the wind of
the
the scorn of the other Christians,
Christians.
who we suspect that if you told them about it might say
And
something
then-
about confession.
And then what they do is then they begin these big campaigns online to
Protect.
make the Christians who want to draw the line there, make them look like they're the sinner. And so they get out the super judgy thing.
Yeah.
But they do it aimed at
Yeah.
the
Christians who
want
might
to
have
hold the line.
judged.
Yeah.
It's possible that a Christian
yeah.
would say, hey, you can't do that. And then that would have been really offensive.
Right. And anyway, what I'm saying is we're not advocating just take
We're
it to the
advocating
streets.
none of those things. Yeah.
Take it to the streets with telling people
I
all the bad things they're doing.
hit upon a hot proverb when this
Okay.
has been on our mind, but the proverb that says, those who justify the wicked or condemn the just.
Yeah.
Or it might have been the other way around. Those who condemn the just or justify the wicked, whichever. It says both are an abomination to the Lord. And when you think about that, what you were just talking about is those who are condemning the just.
Yes.
Like just condemning. And this is something...
And justifying the wicked.
Yeah, both. They're saying, well, she's just sleeping around because things
she
have
was
been hard
hurt.
for her.
She has
And
emotional
you don't
wounds.
understand. She's just doing that for those reasons. And if you were a nice person, and if you were a Christian at all,
Right.
you would know that.
If you weren't a darn
and
hypocrite.
if you weren't that kind of a horrible judgy pants or whatever, then they get so whizzed up about it. But the thing is that making great efforts to justify the wicked through anything that is not preaching the gospel is an abomination to the Lord. Yeah. Like, it just is. Making excuses for wickedness is an abomination.
And also condemning the just.
Condemning, and one of the things that has happened is from time to time when this, the reason we're talking about this is we know it pretty well firsthand. This has happened about us and around us. About us, I meant by around, not specifically about us, but
We've had some about us.
probably. I don't know. We don't pay attention.
We
but
should have like an about us page.
Ooh!
Things we've heard about us.
One time we were told that to be in our church you had to make your own toothbrushes.
Yes.
Which is so odd.
Should we pause to say that's not true?
Well, I like.
But it was flying around that rumor.
Interesting. I just thought, but what would it mean?
I know.
Why would you do that?
Why would
anyways,
we need to?
But that, that is a side point. What I was trying to say is that enough of this has happened around and whatever that I have heard the women in big quotes, all of the women of our church condemned with but one voice for being like uptight church ladies, like women who would say you shouldn't be sleeping around or you shouldn't do this, or women who would have a strong moral compass are just popped all together into this category of like uptight church ladies. But it's so weird how often that is done by people who are full of statistics about how many women have been sexually abused, right? They're like 1 in 4 women have been molested, and I'm like, and then they're saying, except for all those church ladies who believe in biblical morality. Apparently none of them know what they're talking about, which is funny because the group that I've heard written off like that as the ladies who don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
In that group, and I mean this very specifically, women who are my friends, people I know who have been written off this way, in that group are all these women who have been through abuse, like rape, molested as children, so many of them, but they're no longer identified by that sin, not sin, somebody else's sin, but I mean, they're no longer identified by shame or guilt or fear because of the gospel. Like they have moved on to not be primarily burdened by that. And as soon as they get there, you have people dismissing them like, well, you wouldn't understand what it's like. And
Because you're not still wallowing.
One friend of mine in the discussion like this revealed the fact that she had been molested to someone when someone was saying it. She said, you know what? I was molested as a kid. Like she went ahead and told it. And guess how much love and sympathy she got? Just guess. Take a gander.
So much. I bet it turned the table.
No, I mean, there was actually a little pause. There's like a little pause in the conversation, and then, well, you just need to get over that. Not even joking.
goodness.
You just need to deal with it because you must not present any kind of a counter narrative to our
my
narrative, which is
Oh my goodness.
this. No, it's just it's like an interesting thing to think about that, like, that's just so dumb. But all this is to say, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious. Do not justify the wicked or condemn the just, because
No.
both are an abomination.
And also, I love that passage where Paul specifically calls out women and tells them not to falsely slander people. Is that what it is?
I think it is. I
And
think
it's
like
specifically to the women.
and I'll say this.
to the older women, I
because
think.
there's been at least one instance for me upon the Facebook where there was like a group that I would have assumed was pretty decent until we got to see their backside. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
until we were on the other end of it.
Okay.
But my point is, women, do not be quick to share slanderous things about things that you know nothing about. Like, just because you saw it on the internet does not, people will always do it with things like,
Oh, yeah.
this kind of truth needs to be told. And you're like, except for it's all lies, or except for it's all hearsay, or it's all, you know,
Yeah.
like,
I'm trying to find that verse. It's really
this
funny.
would never
I always
stand up
found it
in
funny.
this would never stand up in any court. This
Yeah.
this little testifus of yours that you're sharing. And women, don't be quick to dive in. Like, this is not your business.
No,
Like,
yeah.
and it's part of this making the power of someone's lies be really real. You know what I mean? Like, is that if everyone starts reading it and poring over it and being shocked by it and sharing it. And...
I know. It's
So I wanted
true.
to talk about something else. So
Talk about something else.
um.
I'm really curious.
I
though,
keep
by
getting
the way, if
questions.
we listen to this tomorrow, will we make any sense?
I do wonder because
You and
it's a
I
little
know what
late.
we're talking about, but does anyone else? It's the question.
Too late for us to entertain these doubts. We have to
Yeah.
just soldier on, Becca. Soldier on.
You know, when Knox was a little tot, he sang a song in the back seat that he made up.
Too late to be out.
Yeah, too late to be out, too cold to be wet. And
pretty
I feel
good.
like we're not too cold to be wet, but it might be too late to be out. Anyway,
Oh.
you go ahead and talk
Okay,
about
so
your
I
thing.
keep getting questions from multiple people in various places. Asking us to talk about loyalty. To talk more about loyalty.
Really?
Yeah, which
Okay.
is funny because I feel like I don't have a lot to say about it. But
Yes, you do.
I just think maybe I do. I don't know.
We'll see, but I bet you do.
Who knows? But I'm bringing it up. The questions have been primarily focused on how do you cultivate loyalty, like among your children, you know, to each other, to you,
Can I
to
just
whatever.
Say, can I just say right off?
Do it at all costs.
But I might be making this up. It might have been a dream, but I feel like when I was in junior high, we did a little astronomy class, and we had to go out at night and find constellations. And there was a quiz at the end of the night, which seemed a bit rude because it was like in the middle of the night. But anyway, there was one constellation that you couldn't see if you looked directly at it. You had to look. You had to look to the left, and if you looked to the left, there it was. But you couldn't
Yeah.
see it if you stared right at it. And you know how that there are some things like that, and I feel like this is exactly like that. You cannot cultivate loyalty by instituting loyalty policies. You can't. You can't get
I can
it.
see those going well and far.
You can't.
Thou shalt like my decisions.
You
Thou
can't get it
shalt
by saying
always
everyone,
like your siblings
everyone
more than you currently
must
do.
Be loyal. Like
Yeah.
this is Dad's thing about pull, don't push. You have to pull people along. You can't push them into it.
Yeah, so one of the things that I would say, that's true, and we should come back to that, but I wanted to say, much like this, I don't think the primary things is just looking straight at loyalty itself, but components that are absolutely necessary. Like, I guess what I would say is that loyalty is just a gift from God. Like, it just is. And there are ways that you can cultivate
Yeah,
the
fruit
soil
that
that God
grows on a
gives
certain
that
kind of
gift.
tree.
Yeah, like that's just a gift. But the ways that I would say you cultivate an environment that is really ready for loyalty would be
Confess
in
your
your home.
sins.
Confessing your sins and bitterness is a big
Keep
one.
short
Keeping
accounts.
short accounts. But one of the other things.
Apologize out loud to each other.
Yeah, when you say, though, confess your sins and keep short accounts and all these things, that I think, I mean, I'm really awfully cuffing, and it's late, guys, so if I'm whiffing it, just bear with me. Know that there was a good thought in here somewhere. But this is what I'm going to say. At the root of all of those things, at the root of kindness to one another, long-suffering with one another, apologizing, taking responsibility for things, not getting bitter about stupid things, not letting small...
others more important than
right.
yourself.
That's what I was going to say, is the heart of it is that teaching your children to value obedience and others more than they value themselves. What happens is that you have people who have a habit of laying their life down in very little details, like habits in small ways, right? So the habits are, but people, loyalty and love grows where you have invested your life. And if you teach your children habits of giving your life to these people, they will have such fierce loyalty to you know, like, if they are being faithful as a Christian to the people right around them, they will by default, like, part of the fruit of that is loyalty both ways.
Yeah. Well, let me...
So, like, a sample of something that I work on with my kids is seat hogging in the car.
Sure.
So one thing that I refuse to do is to set a seating arrangement.
Okay.
Because I'm like, you will be
Behave
people
like Christians.
who can behave like Christians and
And-
get in the car and offer other people the better seat.
And funnily enough, Jesus actually talks about which
Seating
seat,
arrangements, right?
Which seat did you
I
grab?
actually told my kids that we actually had this. It was like, Jesus actually talked about the best seat. And there's a little bit of kicking our feet and looking at our feet there.
Okay, I
was like, this is actually a thing.
I need to tell a story that is the way to not do it.
The Walmart?
Here's the opposite of how you get loyalty. I was at a friend's house when
I was totally hearing the story from the Belle overhearing the parenting.
Oh, my daughter, we were just at Costco and she heard a lady huffing at her son who was like 1. And he was being a fink and
grabbing on her legs and like shrieking and
he was being a fink and she was being a bigger fink back at him. And she finally huffed at him like, if you're going to be like that, I'm going to leave and I'm not even going to buy you diapers. You're like, who are you threatening, woman? Because
you have forgotten.
ain't nobody paying for that but you.
It's also just so funny. Like, because all you're doing is teaching that kid that mom does not mean the thing she says.
No.
There is no way you're leaving without those
I
diapers.
like a 1-year-old being like, I should
shoot.
reconsider my
snap.
ways.
It'll be rashy.
No, that's
Anyway,
not what
sorry,
I was gonna
go
say.
back to
That's
your
a
other story.
tangent. No,
Yeah.
no, I was at a friend's house when I was in my teens. And there was, her dad got all cheesed off at, at the children for something. And it had to do with the dishes, but I don't remember the particulars. I feel like they had not cleared the table sufficiently quickly, or
Something was inadequate.
Something was not good. And he had a whiny voice. I mean, he was doing a whiny voice.
Oh
And
no.
he like flounced up like the dad, and he told them all like, fine, watch me be the servant. I'll be the servant. And he picked up those dishes in a huff and went off to be a servant.
And you're like, man, that
it's
servant
like-
heart is just radiating.
he was pulling out the like, I'll be the servant leadership. And it's sort of like, well, not so much really.
Fail blog of Christian attitudes.
But I just mean like when parents are doing that one,
no, nobody's gonna like 'em.
nobody's interested in going that way.
No, and so one of the things that I do work on with my kids is things like not actually negotiating things. Like if they're like, but I would really like to play with this, and she's playing with it and hogging it or whatever. I don't make the rules. I might, but sometimes I bring them all together and I say, you're a Christian and you're a Christian and I want to see you handle this like Christians.
Yeah.
And you figure it out in a way that honors God.
I haven't had to do this in a long time, but when my kids were little, you'd sit them down and be like, all right, we were having a level 10 dispute about the 3-hole punch.
Yeah.
And it's whatever.
Woo!
Or the stapler,
The pettier the better. That's always something
and so
very
you're
petty.
like, tell me something. What's more important?
Yes.
Your sister or the 3-hole punch?
Mm-hmm.
Which one? Pick one. And, it's funny because they know it, but it's like, when
just
you just
look
have
at
to
it.
stop
Look at it all.
and
What are you
look at
picking
it,
right now?
Which means like not letting things swirl out.
No, so like it would not be allowed for our kids to have a sibling that they don't get along with.
No.
Like there may be one where there's more rough roads that we are always having to deal with.
But you don't.
But we would never ever say that can be an established situation. Like
no. And I think the loyalty too, I think there's a lot of ways to fail at creating loyalty, probably. And I would say, like, leaving unconfessed sins around, like just wanting them to go away. Like you lost your temper, but rather than putting it right, you just kind of cheer up and move on.
That's something that I recently,
kind of
very recently, felt like I got kind of. I've been asked this a lot in webinars and stuff where people would say, but what does it look like to be in fellowship? Or what? And it would always really surprise me to be talking to Christians who don't know what being in fellowship is like.
Right.
And, but one of the things that I realized, and shortly after that, I got to witness a moment and I was like, that's how it happens. Where somebody did a big, that was well witnessed by many. Like many believers who subscribe to the same statement of faith all saw that you were not doing well with that right there. Like we all witnessed it. What needed to have happened was a lot of humbling and dealing with it. Well, the person themselves gets convicted of it, right? Privately convicted.
Okay.
Feels when confronted by one person privately was like, yeah, that wasn't good. You know what I mean? Like sees that, but then doesn't go the whole distance of setting it right with every person who saw it.
Right.
So what happens is then they just double down on trying to act cheerful when they see everyone. And it made me realize that this is how you feel, basically like whatever that forest is in Princess Bride where they run into the ROUSs. That's not what it's like being in fellowship with other Christians, where you're like furtively hustling from tree to tree. Maybe about to get blown up by something. What are they like? For they like fire things that come out? Yeah, it's fire spurts and ROUSs. And I feel like for many Christians, that's what they think it's like. Is like you're just careful.
Tread carefully.
Yeah, something might blow up on you at any given moment, or leap from above and bite your shoulder. You don't know. And I was like, no, that's not what it's like. And the way that this happens is that you cannot trust someone when you're just hoping that they got it right with God, and then assuming that they did by their general demeanor. So this whole situation made me realize, I told my husband, I was like, I didn't realize what receipt keepers we are. I said, this is the thing in our family that I would recommend in your families, which is that we all need the receipt on the confession and forgiveness. And then we all throw it away immediately.
Except, I would add, you cannot be a receipt demander of other people.
No, you give them.
You can't. You have to, like, the one person that you need to monitor is your own self.
Right, and except for,
of course, your children.
Except for as a
you
parent, you're in charge of your children.
You're teaching them to monitor themselves.
Right,
like,
but when I say I feel like we need to fill out what I meant by receipt keeping.
Okay.
Which is saying, like, I am sorry. Like I have asked God to forgive me, and I'm asking you to forgive me for being selfish about
Well, one of
whatever.
the rules we grew up with and we have in our house is your confession should be as public as the sin was.
Right.
And actually, one of Dad's great examples that he uses on this subject is he's like, can you imagine, like, picture a sort of 15-year-old boy sauntering down the hallway with a bunch of high school girls standing by. And let's say he trips on his shoelaces and he face plants right there. He's like, you know what would happen is he'd be up so fast you wouldn't wonder if you'd been seeing something. You know, like what happened? There was a flash there. He'd be up. He's like, what he wouldn't do is lie on his face and think, maybe they won't notice me. If I just stay here, maybe they'll not notice
when
that
they
I'm
go
here.
home, I'll get up.
And so the thing is, like, if you sin in front of a bunch of people and you think maybe they won't notice, maybe it will blow over, then you're just lying on the floor, like, thinking that it will casually move on from here. Where it's like, no, if you fall down in front of people, you hop right back up in front of people.
Yes.
Make it right. And make it right with as many people as witnessed it. Because
Yeah, and sometimes they didn't witness it because sometimes somebody says something like, oh man, I got really angry at so-and-so today, and just let them have it. And say they tell you that. And so what I do in such a circumstance is say, did you make it right?
Yeah.
Have you confessed that? Have you made it right? If you're going to confide in me that you did that, then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that you see it all the way through. And basically, now that you told me you did that, this is between us two.
Yeah.
Like, until I know you've gotten it right and you confessed it, then we can't be in fellowship. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I know that it probably, like, I think it is hard for people to imagine a life where you don't allow yourself huge amounts of buffer around your own bad attitudes. Like, a lot of people just give themselves, like, well, this is a bad day, instead of being like, clean it up.
Here's the thing. We all know the verse, love covers a multitude of sins. But here's the trick with that one. That means that your love has to cover a multitude of other people's sins. It does not mean that you should expect their love to cover a multitude of yours. Which, of course, obviously, if you look at it from a theological standpoint, of course that's true. Of course their love should cover a multitude of your sins.
That's just the age-old joke of the man reading a book on being a good wife and the wife reading a book on being a good husband. And they're all just checking up on the sins of others.
Is it Ambrose Bierce who says in the Devil's Dictionary that definition of a Christian is someone who believes the Bible is a divinely inspired book admirably suited to the spiritual needs of his neighbor.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes. So the thing is like, you shouldn't go around assuming that the world should extend grace to you. Your job is to extend grace to them.
Absolutely.
And if everyone was doing that, there would be
in a better place.
Quite a lot less trouble.
Yeah, what I meant by receipt keeping was not keeping a record of everything, but making sure
it does sound a bit like you have a ledger
it does.
of
I don't mean that.
grievances.
No, what I mean is making sure there's closure on things. Like, that we can actually walk away from that as done. Yeah. And there's no reason for us to revisit this the next time I see you or the next, like, we wrapped this up.
Or going back to what it means to not be in fellowship is, you know how it is when there's some kind of weird falling out. And then there's just like a sour smell in the air every time you're around each other because that thing is still kind of hanging there and it didn't get put right. And it's not, and that's like when that develops in families, that's just toxic. It's like, it's like living in a home full of sour milk and dirty dish rags. Like, it's
bad. Well, one thing about that is that when your kids are little, it is just the real fundamental basics. It is what you said about talking about what's more important. Like, it's not just doing things like, say two kids are fighting over a toy. The quick route would be to say, here, I'll handle it. Like, I'll give you 3 minutes, and then you can have 3 minutes, and then you can... And the reality is that that's not the problem. The problem is in the grabby hearts that are happening. Yeah. And so the problem is, it's much more work. The littler they are, the more work that it is. The older they get, the more they start to understand what you're actually saying, which is, you know... But I make my kids, when they apologize about things... this is like a whole other topic. When they apologize to one another, sometimes I tell them what they all have to say to each other. If there was like, if it was not like a big issue, just kind of a tude happening. If it was kind of one of those times where people are more likely to be using their elbows when on accident. Yeah. Accidental elbow usage goes way up. You're not sure how. You're like, suddenly, we're all being jabbed in the ribs on accident super hard. Whenever that kind of thing happens, I'm like, well, you know, when everyone's apologizing, a lot of the time we throw some humor into it. Like making people saying things like, please forgive me. You know, forgetting high and mighty and being the one who had to have it my way, and kind of like, you know, like we joke about it. Like everybody has to say, I'm the worst, or I'm, you know, whatever. We just joke about it. And they all think it's funny, and it's all, you know, it's fine. But part of it is just being like, come on now. Like, this is not the kind of thing we let take over our...
I'm throwing something else in here, too, because I know what you mean, but just to clarify, it's kind of important that they learn to use biblical language and not euphemisms.
Yes, that's
true.
So
in terms of like joking around about it, like that's kind of, sometimes that can be a way of dismissing, covering, not actually saying what it is. So we've always said, no, you really need to say, I'm sorry for being angry. I'm sorry for telling a lie. I am sorry for... whatever it is, use biblical language for it, and
we
not
also
just,
do that. But I was talking about.
I'm sorry for being a little under the weather.
I hope you didn't mind how I was a little tired.
Yeah. Or the better one is when you manage to apologize in a way that spins it to show that the other person was.
I'm really sorry that you lost control of yourself when I said that.
What I did made you so angry.
Yeah, no. What I meant about with the kids was primarily that we make a big deal in our house all the time about taking responsibility. Like, so we will say, I need to hear you take responsibility for it. I need to hear you say, I did this wrong. I did this thing wrong. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it was, instead of the vaguey stuff. Yeah. And we do work on that. What I meant more was when it is more the fog of the world. We talk in terms of let's all get reoriented to each other.
And get back.
Let's start back and let's laugh at ourselves about our bad attitudes.
Because it's also bad when everybody apologizes in the sullens.
Yes, no, but one of the things that I've enjoyed about this is my older kids do this voluntarily now. Like, if they come back to apologize for an aura, not for any specific, but it's for when they're feeling guilty about an attitude that they had that really was only, for the rest of us, it was only the gentle scent of the attitude, but it was present. They will sometimes come, it always makes me laugh when they come up, they're like, Mom, I am sorry for being such a snort. Or, know, when they, that they're just like, I appreciate that because I feel like they're recognizing it and they're handling it.
That's good.
Okay, we gotta do a tip.
Tip time. So, give me a tip, like a house tip, like a favorite, something that makes your house more fun to be in. A color, a decorating thing, a favorite soap, scent.
I would
candle,
say
decoration.
I hate to talk like I think my house is triumphantly decorated.
Well, let's look at what a triumph mine is.
Yes,
right
yours is triumphant in a different way. So here's the thing, though, is I do like design an awful lot, and I've been in what I joke as family realism. Design has been my favorite design for a while.
Like Picasso's blue face.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's just family realism. We just have to not joke ourselves that there aren't going to be that many shoes by the front door or something. There's just is. There's just things that are must-haves right now. Yeah. So, but what I would say, I do love design, and one of the things that I think is most noticeable to me is that when you are making a home, making a space that you want to be hospitable, like, do things that you love, not things that you're told to do somewhere. Because, like, if you just study the pages of Pottery Barn. Now, I get that can be really helpful. They have some really beautiful things
Yeah, it can
in
be
there.
inspiration.
But when you just try to mimic something, it's like, I love it when you go into a house that has some funny flair or something, like, even if I would never make those decisions, when it's very reflective of the person who is there, it is really joyful. It's fun to see it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very hospitable. It's fun. Because what you're seeing is someone else's joy. Like, you're seeing someone else's, and it isn't that it can't be beautiful the other way, but I feel like it feels like looking through a mirror into another mirror. You know what I mean? It feels like it's like somewhere in there too far away is the original vision for this.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Sure.
Like, if you actually walked into the showroom that Pottery Barn made to photo shoot, it would probably feel really lovely because of the designers, whoever put it all together. They loved something that was happening there. They had this drive. It's personal. But if someone just kind of copycats that in their own, you know, like they take it and lift it, then, and so sometimes I guess my tip is to just, if you love something, just don't be ashamed of that if it is not it, like your big Bavarian hutch.
That's
like
a piece of
right.
wow.
And you and I go different directions on this. I have
do.
like a bizarre affection for funny sort of squatty objects usually. Becca goes for anything with a lot of flourish with the French spelling. Flourish. Has have a lot of
I don't think
flourish.
that's quite true, but it is true that things that I pick out will have more swoopiness than the things
and
Rachel will
there's
pick out.
like, I would say 300 times more urns.
Now you're just bringing out grievances from my Maxfield Parish years.
No, I'm not. I'm saying
I think so.
you
When she
still
says
you still go
300
for
times-
urns.
No, I have one urn. One.
Becca.
Count them.
The urns that you had to make for
One.
centerpieces for the logo, for the NSA
Well, I
thing.
made those.
All the little white urns on your little
I have those,
shelvage.
but they're small.
Your big urn. She has like probably 45 urns of various kinds. and you know the thing about my urns?
Oh dear, now
the
that you
thing-
mention it.
I
But
have
see,
one
those
in-
are vases.
I have one in the garage that has no flourishes.
I wanted your urns. You wouldn't sell them to me.
Yeah. Anyways, the point
Now,
about
let's bring
this,
that up. You have some urns that I wanted, and you loved them and wouldn't.
they're
give
in the
them to me.
garage because I use them occasionally for events. I think actually one of them might be down at Cannon. Anyways, the point about this is that the things that I have are very different from the things that Becca has, but it's still, like, I have over my fireplace those funny like 50s carved wood fish.
Yeah.
They're like vintage ones that I bought off of someone else in our community who's selling them, and I think they're so cute, and I keep on thinking they're so cute every time I see them.
It's always good when you find.
But
the
they
thing.
still just look super funky. They're mounted above our fireplace on little Velcro tabs, looking like they're swimming on a very 60s fireplace. And did you know what? I don't care. I love them. Every time I see them, I'm like, yes, those fish. So my point is that
is just put things you love in there.
things that it's very Marie Kondo to
It
say.
is. Does it
Does
spark
it give
joy?
you joy? Does it sparkle the
Wow.
joy for you? Well, then
Well,
decorate with that.
Here's the thing that I can't help myself with: a big, oversized, antique globe with that rad color of water. I'm like, darn it! I have to buy it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't know why. I have too many of them. Oh, it might be only 4, but still. That's a lot of globes. There's not really a thing to do with it, but it's like,
Did you know what I did?
That makes me happy right there.
Let me tell you what I did. That
We're going so late. This
I
is
went
hilarious.
to Judah's class yard sale.
Oh,
And at
nice.
Judah's class yard sale, there was this dilapidated old wagon.
Okay.
I don't know what possible use it could have served. It's like a baby wagon. It looks like it could be a covered wagon, but small.
Okay.
But not that small. Bigger than a red flyer. I mean, it's like a big wagon, but it has these huge metal wheels, one of which was off.
Okay.
They're yellow wheels. And I even commented on it with the people who were there. I was like, oh, yeah, ooh. And they were like, it's cool, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it's cool, but that looks like a hot mess somebody could have in their garden. Seriously, that's even the level I was talking about. I think it's really cool for somebody else's problem than not mine. Well, guess who was texting him the next day to say, do you still have that wagon? I can't stop thinking about that wagon. And so I just blessed my husband right on up by, of course, purchasing the thing for $5.
Perfect.
And then we go to pick it up. Well, it's this most ramshackle thing with these one wheel off and some stuff all rusted out, and you know, Luke, he's a long-suffering man, but he's like so. His basic question is how good will this look in our garage for 4 years? Like, you don't understand the vision. You gotta get the vision.
What
Luke.
was the vision? I have to ask.
Well, now I think that my plan.
Pot rack.
My
You were
plan
gonna turn
is
it into a pot rack.
It would be good. My plan. It would be good. Is many things. Many things. We could have made that thing into a dog bed. No, my plan is to build a coffee table and put the wheels on it.
Oh, that could be cool.
They're really heavy metal yellow wheels.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
like,
kinda rad.
oh, they could be rad. However, in the meantime, we have the whole wagon in our driveway. And I'm like, I got to figure this out before I afflict my husband with this.
That's
but
pretty
it was
cool.
the thing that, for
That it
whatever
sparked
reason,
joy. It did.
sparks joy in my kids, too. They're all like, but where are we going to drive it? I'm like, nowhere. It'll probably
Oh,
give
my
you
word.
tetanus
Well,
if you
so
play
that's
it.
a good tip. I think we kind of, sort of
No,
tipped.
you didn't give your decorative
No,
tip.
I
Come
didn't.
on,
But
do
look
it.
at how many. We've been talking for 50 minutes.
Do it. We'll tell people to just turn us off early. Tell me your tip.
I've got nothing. I mean, I'm distracted from your tip. I think maybe next time we should just talk about houses. I think that would be good.
That'd be fun.
It would.
We need to talk about the Bible reading program next time.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. Well,
we should just
Becca
call
can't
it. We
think
should-
past my
I've got
wagon.
nothing.
She
I've
can't
got-
think
I
past my
could
wagon,
tell
so
you
we're going to have to
about
power it down now.
polyurethane this time, but I think I'll pass.
Just
on
power.
telling you
Let's power down on my wagon
My one
note.
tip is just use a brush for polyurethane. You'll save yourself heartache in the long run. Don't use lamb's wool. Okay. That's
Good night.
all. Over and out.
Bye.
New St. Andrews College thanks you for listening.